and happy Monday. I think it's streaming. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm John Miglosh for the Wisconsin DMA and the International Society for Strategic Marketing. Well, I've been sending out invitations to the meetup we're going to have on Thursday, the 23rd or the 26th or something. Anyway, let's double check. Thursday, the 23rd in Elm Grove, Wisconsin, and just outside of Milwaukee County. So I think we're pretty safe as far as the limitations go. If you're looking for a get-together to talk marketing and have a beer, you probably won't find one anywhere else. It seems like that. And if you're in Chicago and you don't want to make the drive, then find a place where we can meet. And we'll have one down there too. So check it out at wdma.org. I also wanted to mention that I do a live stream, or I do a podcast. I record this every day and convert it to MP3. And they're all available on the wdma.org if you want to check it out. And I hope you'll join and subscribe. We've dramatically raised our overhead to get these bouncy little invites. The style consultant puts those together, and she's very, very good at it. So, back to the news. We're going to go, let's see, we got to get this thing to work right. Okay, because I'm botching it up. Okay, so PDF, we got that right, and I got to get on which channel I'm on. Okay, and here's Tom Fishburne. And today's cartoon is share of voice. Okay, share of voice. When I asked to analyze our share of voice, I meant media spending, not how much you think I talk in meetings. And this guy is the red-haired guy, and he's the big talker. And so marketing has a graph of who talks the most in the meeting, which gets at an interesting epistemology of marketing. Marketers are perpetually looking for the most useful metrics to guide marketing decisions. None are perfect and many are in flux. And I would argue, no, that's not really what they're looking for. They're looking for the one that justifies the decision they want to make, which is an entirely different approach. There are very, very few marketers that are really data-driven. They really have their opinion and they want to verify it. And one of my challenges in my career, having worked with data for now 25 years, is when you make a side bet with the president of the company and prove him wrong. And, I've done it a lot. They don't like that. You get fired. What's your point? I don't know. Anyway, but Sean Biglione from Zenith says, bluntly, the tracking of digital spend is a bit of a shit show, often leaving share of voice reports with big disclaimers that digital is very likely underreported, if at all. This was fine when digital spending represented less than 10% of the total, but now it's a big headache for analysts and marketers relying on that data. Ask a media team for share of voice analysis and watch their eyes roll in despair. Right. One of the big advantages of digital from the very beginning was you could manipulate, it was difficult to measure, it was overly complex, and so therefore if you wanted to do stuff, you could do it, and nobody would question it because nobody knew anything about digital. And going forward, when the cookies got going, then you could manipulate the attribution to give digital credit for everything, including what mail had driven to the website and to purchase. Okay, so the beauty of measuring SOV is that, yes, you can use it to estimate your rankings, and you can affect these rankings almost immediately by opening or tightening your media budget. That's the bathtub model, if you've seen me talk about that. But SOV can also have an inflationary effect, a bit like an arms race. Obsessing how big your competitor's budget is can easily drift categories toward an unhealthy level of spending, which basically means spending in inefficient media when you should be spending in direct mail, which is completely measurable because you can do holdout tests and you can measure the exact impact of the mail. So how about we spend more time and effort building plans based on consumers, or we have more integrity in marketing? That's my take for the day. Disney's remaining 2020 movies to debut in theaters only. And I mentioned this because Ritson made a big deal about how Disney could capture all kinds of consumer information by selling direct to consumers, which is true. But did they? I don't know. You know, that's the thing about measurable. We could measure, we just forgot to. You know, I was once in a meeting with with the GM credit card and EDS, and they said, you know, after an hour of why am I here, and they went around and told me that I was their best hope for, you know, real data answers. Finally, I said, well, what would you like to know? And they said, we'd like to know who would have bought a car without the $5,000 rebate for using their credit card. And I said, well, what answer would you like? And they said, we thought you were a data guy. I said, I am, but you didn't probably set it up right in the beginning. You have no holdout tests. You have nothing. You just offered it to everybody, and now you can't. You don't have a control group, right? Right. I said, I can probably make something, you know, look good. Just tell me what you want it to look like. And that's what marketing wants, mostly. Okay, now we're going to go over to 5 direct mail bloopers from Summer Gould. And I always like what Summer has to say. So this is no exception. And she says, for the last 30 years, and I'm right now, I don't know, mid-September is my 40th anniversary. I don't even remember the date anymore. How could I, right? Of starting as a direct marketing consultant with Vic Hunter. But I know it was September, and I know it was 1981. And so we're 40 years in as a direct marketing consultant. So I got even more years than Summer. And it's hard to believe because she looks like she's still in college down in her profile picture. But she said they've had some flops. They've learned much more from the flops than from the great achievements, which is always true. Okay, the first principle is your direct mail should never lie to people, or as some people put it, stretch the truth. And that is easier. It's easier said than done avoiding that, because my experience in direct mail is that it's not just the copy. It's the entire piece. It's the entire vision. And sometimes the lies are just not telling people what you're really up to. And we did a piece for General Binding. This was fairly early on. That was like my second or third big client, and or maybe a little more than that. And I have a General Binding catalog up on my shelf behind me. There it is. But you know, they got excited about direct mail, and they did a piece on their own that showed their laminators, and it showed school laminators and industrial laminators and all sorts of things. And then it had a sale on it, but it was printed on at least 100-point, beautiful coated cover stock, and laminated on top of that because they wanted to show, you know, the lamination, how nice lamination was. And then they put like a sale offer, and out of 150,000 pieces, it got like 3 leads coming in. And so they asked me what to do differently, and I said, well, first of all, you're saying sale, but you're not giving a sale, and you're talking about every machine except what you wanted to sell, which was the school laminators. And they said, well, teachers already know us with school laminators, so we're going to mention all these other laminators they wouldn't want. I said, well, okay, that's a strategy. Anyway, and so that tipped me off to the idea that you can lie to people without saying anything that's false. Okay, no or unclear call to action. You know, and I helped USPS launch mail in a bunch of big brands. One was Oakley, and Elena Neely got me into Oakley, and we had a wonderful time calling on Oakley, and I'll never forget it. But they handed me their mail piece, and I said, there's no response device, there's no call to action. They said, sure, look in the body copy, there's the 800 number, real little. And I said, well, no one's going to see it. And you know, they said, well, shouldn't we test it? I said, well, do you have a split test ready? They didn't. So I said, just make it bigger. And so I'm going to show you a couple of the make it biggers right now that help the call to action. Let me see if I can get over to this thing to work. Okay, it's my first catalog, and the first catalog was this one, and it was driven by prior corporation. They wanted to look like Land's End, so it was very artistic and beautiful. But it wasn't real clear what it was. Here's the fine print up here, full line computer supplies catalog. It didn't do very well, and they asked me to fix it. And so we made this nice and big and red computer supplies catalog, and it did much better enough that they could buy a bigger company, and that put them out of business. But here's the original layout, lots of white space, very, very beautiful. Not easy to necessarily see which copy went with which product. Here was the full grouping, made the space work much harder. I did most of that on the train between Milwaukee and downtown Chicago. Deluxe hired me to fix this one. It said introducing a way to collect monthly payments. And I added introducing a money-saving way. That's the benefits. That's point number 5. Instead of the features, just a new way to collect payments. A money-saving way to collect monthly payments, okay? On the inside, we got a lot of clicks on this thing. On the inside, this is what it looked like. So effective, you'll wonder how you ever managed without it. Now, where is the call to action? Where's the 800 number? Nowhere, okay? So now I added customized for each unit, so we put the address of each unit on there. They get each payment book, and of course, if you rented, you'll have these, but this was when it first came out. Made the 800 number nice and big, free information packet, you know, made it as low as $1.47. And so it wasn't that the first picture lied, it was just that it didn't really tell the story. And that can be as big a mistake as any. Okay, let's see if we got, and the deluxe guarantee highlighted. Okay, this was one of my first disasters. This was a mailer. The guy came, American Lifting Systems. He was right off the freeway, and he sold these tie-down straps. And he did real well with this. Sent it to truckers and people that had bought from him in the past. And it actually worked. So then we hired a really, really good designer who worked for me later. You know, he really was a good designer. He made the sort of a 25% real big. Percentages are hard to figure out. A free lever that would would give you more leverage on the strap. And we actually glued a piece of the strap on there, except that everybody knew that. But it's very, very dead and didn't have not near the credibility that his pasted up one that looks kind of like a ransom note. He literally just grabbed stuff from other mailers, and it's crooked and tilty and all that, and it did way better. So it's not always the nicest look that does the best. Deluxe hired me for this one. Deluxe Business Forms Supplies Catalog. It could be an adjective, deluxe. Like very, very nice business forms. I said, why don't you aren't you part of Deluxe? They had it down here in fine print, which is another point that Summer makes. Made it big, deluxe, like you see on the checkbooks. This is business supplies, form stationery supplies, the building blocks of a successful business. Put the 800 number huge instead of little. Much better. Okay, here's one of my greatest successes. We were very proud of our clients. We had 3M, Pontiac, Avon, Caterpillar, all kinds of Ford truck. And I would hand it out to people, and they would say, well, why would I want a Pontiac hat? No, you put your own logo on there. Oh, yeah, we buy that stuff. Sure, let me have one of those catalogs. That's how it went for about a dozen people. So I said, you know, they're not getting what we're doing, like these other experiences, right? And so we changed it to this, your imprint here, and we did an A/B test. And this is the power of really knowing what's going on with mail. You do this in social media, and you do one in one place and one in another, you wouldn't know what was going on. But we did an A/B split with 600,000 pieces, so 300,000 of each. And this is how close they look, okay? This is A, this is B, so, right? Or this is the control, and this is the test. Guess what the difference was? There wasn't one word of copy different in the entire catalog, not one price, nothing else different. 40%. This won by 40%. Okay? So make it clear what you're selling. And that's one of oh, now the last point she makes is with list. And this is just a zip code map of Milwaukee, but it doesn't exactly, there's very few maps that show the city of Milwaukee and the zip code maps, and they don't quite overlap. So Warner Cable hired us to do a mailer, and you know, I looked up on some table what zips covered Milwaukee, and these do, you know, the ones in here in the interior, and the rest is Milwaukee County. And Milwaukee County is perfectly defined by zip codes. A lot of counties are, a lot of states are, a lot of cities are not. But I've only seen one map that showed the boundaries of the city of Milwaukee and the boundaries of the zip codes, and they're not overlapping. The postal system did whatever they felt like. You know, and in fact, in Iowa, the SCFs are all checkerboarded. I don't know why, but for some reason, Iowa decided to alternate SCFs across the map. So the post office could do what they want, and the problem was we got a great response from places just outside the city limits of Milwaukee. But Warner Cable only had the franchise for the city of Milwaukee and was not able to sell outside in that perimeter. And so they had to figure out if the customer was actually in the city of Milwaukee or not. And it was a complete waste of the mailing. There was a lot of ways we could have fixed that list, but that was a list issue, and that's one of the issues that Summer raises. Let's go over to Summer's article again. So, old list. Be careful with your list. Call to action. Have a clear call to action. Font. I did work with the Billy Graham Association, and what we found was, this was for the annuities division, what we found was that ads with less than an 8-point type got 0 response. It wasn't a slow decay as type fonts decreased. If you got below 8-point, it went to nothing. So be careful, and you can test the font size. It's not even hard. That's something you might be able to test in digital. But I would always recommend verifying your hypotheses and your observations in mail, because we have the most solid engagement, the most solid open rate. Everybody has to look at it, and so we know who looked at it and didn't buy. Okay, so there's great work from Summer. I highly recommend you talk to her. Have a great day. Go over to WDMA.org and sign up for the meetup in person. Have a beer. Bring your own beer. Buy your own beer. We're a low overhead operation. Have a great day. Like and share. Your friends will know you're smart.